Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Zoe. This is Jo. And we're going to talk to you in this session about the secret lives of bookkeepers, what accountants don't know about bookkeeping. Now, you're probably hearing regularly, if you're an accountant here, that you should be adding bookkeeping as a service in your accountancy practice. It's really topical. We see this a lot. Like, what is happening? How are all these bookkeepers doing it? And if you're an accountant in the audience, you might be thinking, okay, so I need to add bookkeeping as a service, but how much can I actually charge to do that?
So we're here today to tell you all the secrets that bookkeepers know that accountants don't know about bookkeeping and why we keep talking about it. See, the thing is, accountants lead with compliance. So they're coming in at that level, the end result, making sure HMRC are happy and that filing the company's house accounts, etc. Whereas bookkeepers start and lead with bookkeeping. So we are very different. The question we all want to know is how much can we charge for bookkeeping as an accountant? Surely it's a loss leader. Surely it's like payroll and you have to do it, but you don't really want to do it. And it's not going to really make you any money, but your client needs it. Why should we invest time, effort in systems and processes? And, surely we could just outsource it. Why should we bring it in-house?
We wanted to find out the answer to this ourselves. And last year, we conducted a pricing survey. We did this in our community of bookkeepers and accountants, which, I don't know, at the time probably had less than 10,000 members. It's about 18,000 members now. And we asked some really basic questions around pricing. How do you charge for certain bookkeeping services that you offer in your practice? We pulled all of those results together. We put it into a bookkeepers pricing survey. And then we came along to Manchester this time last year. Well, I'm sure it was much colder than today. And we came and spoke to you about the hourly rate that bookkeepers were charging. Now, I've got to say, before we move on, that we should have a whole other conversation about hourly rates for bookkeeping. But what we found during that survey is that the going average rate for bookkeeping was £25 an hour.
And I am someone if you were here a minute ago, just saw Johan speak on stage. And Johan has just last month bought my bookkeeping practice because he openly said to me, we're an accountancy firm. And yes, we do bookkeeping, but we're not doing it to the best of the ability. And we want to know, the reason he bought my practice is that we focus on that. And he said it was the missing piece of the puzzle for him to get really right so he could grow, add more value to his clients and, ultimately be more profitable.
This is our community, the Six Figure Bookkeepers Club. When we set up this community, we were looking for a support network for ourselves. We needed people around us who were growing businesses, and we wanted to bring together aspirational business owners who were growing businesses that worked for them. Now, that group is full of people, all shapes and sizes, different sizes of businesses, but what brings them together is that they have a focus in mind that they want to build a business that works for them. So a lot of the members are bookkeepers. We have lots of accountants in the group as well. We have people all over the world. And what you'll find is that even people internationally say, well, the reason I'm part of this community is because everything here is relevant. This is all about business development, business growth. What do I need to do to be able to charge more than the £25 an hour?
And the thing is, we have had a lot of stick from both bookkeepers and people in the industry. Why have you called it a six-figure bookkeeper? Not everyone wants to reach six figures. Not everyone wants to do that. It sounds a bit too... Who can actually do that? And the reason is that we did it is because we wanted to something to people think, really? Can you do that? But really, it's a mindset. It's about what does six figures mean for me? It doesn't necessarily mean £100,000 plus turnover. It might mean picking up your kids from school every day or going to the sports day or being able to, have some holiday without taking the laptop. What does six figures mean to you? But for me, back in April 2019, when I started my sole trader business, I incorporated it a year later, I needed that six figures. I needed to turn over £100,000 because I'd just been made redundant from a finance director role. And I'd just bought a new house, had a new mortgage, and I had 3 kids, and my husband was looking after the family. I had to earn six figures. So I set up the community at the time as well with that name because I was kind of putting it out there to the world that it could happen because I needed to prove it could happen because I needed to keep a roof over our heads. So I kind of was really putting something out to the universe. I wasn't sure if I was going to achieve it. But the thing was, I didn't need, my salary wasn't £100,000 a year, but as a business owner, we're going to have overheads. And I knew I was going to need support if I was going to get to that. So it had to be £100,000 a year, less overheads to make the profit be the salary that I was taking home as a finance director.
Yeah, and I think that we think, don't we? We think, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to charge this much because it's like maybe a bit more than I was paid what my hourly rate was when I was employed. So if I could charge a little bit more, yeah, that feels about right. But we don't factor that in. We don't factor in the overheads involved. We don't factor in the tax costs, the fact that we might need some support. We often think, well, I'm smaller than the other person on the high street. So, I shouldn't charge the same as what they would charge. And we keep ourselves small. There's a real problem with this £25 an hour mindset. The first one is there's no way you can get to six figures if you charge £25 an hour. Here's the maths. You'll love the maths as the maths people in the room. If you wanted to make £100,000 a year turnover at £25 an hour, you need to work 4,000 hours a year. If you worked every single week of the year, you'd need to, I can see a lady shaking her head at the back. There's no one wants to work 79 hours a week. So we need to do something different. But what do we do?
So I knew this going into building this business. Actually, the limited company is 3.5 years old. And I knew that I could not charge by the hour if I was going to get to that six figures. It was going to be impossible. Also, I had, as I said, I've got 3 children. I have a family. I'm the eldest of 5 kids as well. So, there's I wanted to do other things other than work all those hours in a week. So I went out there pricing it differently. Value-based pricing, monthly recurring revenue from clients, monthly charges, and that was different. And we actually ready for this talk. Zoe said, well, how much did you make over the 3.5 years? And I was a bit surprised yesterday because my turnover for 3.5 years was over £700,000. So and that was starting with the bookkeeping in mind. Remember, I'm not an accountant. I can't sign off. I've never signed off a set of accounts in my life. So, and I don't sign off tax returns. So we thought, you would want to know more about these six-figure bookkeepers and as accountants out there, how you can benefit from our knowledge.
And Jo's not the only one. This happens all the time. We're regularly having posts in our community from bookkeepers and accountants who are working with us who say, I've hit the six figures. It's a funny thing, isn't it? Because we always say it's actually about creating a lifestyle, achieving the goals that you really have for yourself. But there is still something about saying, yes, I am that six-figure bookkeeper. So every now and again we go out and we say, come on, like who's there? Who's at this target? If they're not just shouting about it themselves. This is Annabelle Barnes. She's a bookkeeper in our community. She was employed up until lockdown 2020. One of her children had a heart problem and she needed to isolate. She needed to be at home. Her employer was really flexible with her, but she was thinking, well, actually, long term, I don't know how this is going to go on. I believe she made her employer her first client and she started her practice. And her goal all the time was to bring her husband into the business as well. Well, since 2020, she's grown a business with a team of 7. She's obviously turning over 6 figures as well. And so she's a success story. This is something she's been able to do very quickly because she's had the mindset in place. This is Nicola Fallon. Nicola has told me she's gone to see a different talk. Nicola's a 6-figure bookkeeper as well. She started out having been made redundant from her role in corporate. She'd been in a career for a really long time, working in payroll particularly. And she decided, well, actually, I need to do something for myself. And she's got very strong family values, grown-up children. She's now grown her business to bring family members into her team. She's another 6-figure bookkeeper. And this guy is Dave Shannon. Dave used to be a driving instructor. In lockdown, Dave found that he couldn't take his students out on driving lessons anymore. So he thought, well, I have to do something. Something's, I've got to make money somehow. And Dave had always loved the bookkeeping in his business. It was, one of his passions and hobbies to understand how that was going. So he thought, well, how can I turn this into a business? I need to do my training, qualifications. And because he had this network of other driving instructors who always came to him for advice and support, can I put this through on my tax return? He was always the person answering those questions. So he kind of had this ready-made network to go into, and he became the bookkeeper serving driving instructors. That was his sort of first niche, which we'll talk about a bit more. He's also an author, and David's a six-figure bookkeeper. He's just taken his wife on full-time in his practice as well.
So what can accountants learn from the bookkeepers that we've just been discussing, the people in our industry, and, how we just approach things from a different point of view?
This is a group of some of our members. Yesterday, we were really fortunate to be hosted by Moneypenny, who very kindly offered us their meeting space to have a bookkeepers meetup. It was an amazing day. We had 25 or so accountants and bookkeepers in the room, some who work with us, some who were kind of new to our community. And we didn't spend the day talking about how to do technical bookkeeping. We didn't spend the day talking about how to price bookkeeping services. We spent the day talking about how we can build really strong relationships with our clients, because communication is really important when you're a bookkeeper.
So just a bit about me and Zoe. Zoe is an accountant by, that's what you did your whole life until you started your bookkeeping practice. And I've just sold my bookkeeping practice, and we host the Bookkeepers Podcast together, sponsored by Xero. And last year we released our book, The Bookkeeper Rises. And at the beginning of the book is our RISE framework, which we're going to take you through a whistle-stop tour through our RISE framework now. And the second half of our book had 32 stories from bookkeepers in our communities, just sharing why they started, all the different things we talk about, family, health, redundancy. You've heard all of those stories today. And I think it's really nice to hear other stories and realise why bookkeeping has found them. See, the thing is that we find is that bookkeepers don't study bookkeeping or have vocation to be bookkeepers, do they? They don't go, at 16, I'm going to become a bookkeeper. But you might say, I'm going to become an accountant. So this, again, is another difference between us. And we're going to show you why that helps us in some ways. I mean, everything's different, but today we're talking about the bookkeepers and the benefits.
And what accountants can learn from a bit of a twist, I suppose, on the way that bookkeepers approach bookkeeping to the way that potentially accountants approach bookkeeping, because maybe you're driven by the compliance and the year end, it's just a different take on it. So the RISE framework, we start with the reset. This is about having goals in business. This is about your mindset that's going to set you up for success. It's really important to the bookkeepers. You will have heard about the bookkeepers we've just spoken about, Nicola being made redundant, Dave not knowing about the future of his business as a driving instructor, Annabelle about prioritising her family. Values run deep. The reason for these businesses are so core to the success of the business. We have to make that front of mind.
So if you think the difference when an accountant and a bookkeeper start in business, so maybe an accountant has physical premises and they've got all the qualifications and they've got the self-belief to go out there. Maybe they haven't got all the self-belief, but they've got those qualifications. They're really proud and they've seen other people take this path. And so they're going to have their main focus of getting clients, getting those sales in. Whereas when a bookkeeper starts and approaches their business, they're usually thinking about, yes, I need money. I need money to build the business, but I need money to pay the mortgage like I did. Or I need money to fill up the pot so that we can go on holiday one day. They're seeing it more a bit like a side hustle, usually when we join them. But also they're having to compromise because they've found this profession because something's happened in their life and they need it. They need to earn money, but there's going to be something else that means they can't do 9 to 5, Monday to Friday in a traditional office building.
Yeah, that's really important, isn't it? It's different. If you start an accountancy practice and you see the traditional model of an accountancy practice, the expectation is you have an office on the high street, you open 9 to 5, you're busy in January, it runs in that way. The bookkeepers we're talking about know they need to start a business that works for them. They don't always know that at the beginning. Their focus is on finding those first clients. They need to get that money in. But when they realise what's core, they realise those values of family, balance, flexibility, then it changes. So we do learn that we can move from this point of compromise. And I think this is something that the bookkeepers in our worlds would agree. I'm looking around at some of the bookkeepers I know. I think we've all been on this journey of okay, I just need to like fill the gap. I need to bring some money in. And that's why we charge £25 an hour, because we see that we don't really have a choice. We maybe don't think that we're professional enough yet. We don't have the office. We don't have the overhead. So we shouldn't be charging so much. Because we see it as a compromise, we find it hard to set those goals. But then we start to realise that we can. It was never about having $1 million business or going on these like fancy holidays. We don't see this jet setter life. We don't have the Porsche chats in the Six-Figure Bookkeepers Club. This is about building a business that works for us. And I think it's maybe a little bit different to the influence that you see in the sort of accountancy. Well, and just to say I'm an accountant, so I feel like I can say that. I think we just approach it differently.
And the thing is that when bookkeepers approach having a business, they have got so much going on in their minds, and you have to have a growth mindset. I've heard a lot when I've worked in accountancy firms, and if I ever said, oh, why do we do it that way? Well, it's always been done that way. And I think with bookkeeping practices, I remember in 2011, when I started a bookkeeping practice, the ICB said, oh, you're our biggest practice. Like, no one ever usually goes past one bookkeeper or two bookkeepers. And about 2014-15, I had about 14 bookkeepers. And they were like, oh my God, you're like, they made me feel like I was a unicorn business because I'd managed to grow and no one else had done it. And I mean, it was bad. It didn't work out well. I built it so wrong. And that's why I'm so passionate now about helping people to build it right, because it was big, didn't mean it was good. And I've had to do a lot of learning, but I had to, that's the other thing. I have failed. This last practice was my 5th practice. I've started, failed. I had to have a growth mindset. I couldn't be fixed and think my way was the right way, because actually I had no one to look at and see how to do it. So I've had to be really adaptive, and I can't say this is how it's always been done because no one else had done it that way.
Oh my gosh. And that is why everything we talk about is about community, collaboration. Like, we want to bring people together because there's no need for all of your secrets of your practice to be hidden behind closed doors. I think this industry potentially in the past has been very much like, I know how to build my business this way and I'm going to keep that to myself so I don't lose all my clients and they don't go somewhere else. Actually, do you know what? If we all talk about the benefit of being a great bookkeeper, a great accountant, we can help other people to realise the value of what they do, and we can raise the bar together.
Absolutely.
Okay. Part 2 in the RISE framework is understanding your ideal client. So this is about having a niche, and we get a hard time for this.
We do. Everyone assumes that when we say ideal client, they mean industry niche, and you only work with builders or you only work with carpet fitters. He had a pink carpet, so we like this picture. They think that we're talking about industry niche. We're not talking about that. So in my last practice, I did work with salon owners, but I didn't work with all salon owners because actually ideal clients are much more than just an industry niche. Very much, I wanted to work with people, and I like salons because I like having my hair done and I understood them as a client. I like having my nails done. I was thinking about, what do I enjoy? What service, what business do I enjoy and get and understand as a customer? So that felt good. But it doesn't mean there were about 60% of my client base. Actually, what I wanted was people that I liked. I mean, I have never worked in an accountancy practice where they turned anyone away for being, I can't say that, for being, not nice. They would take on everybody because their focus was the fee. And I've worked with some horrible people because of that. And one of the things when I designed my own business, I thought, I want to like the people that I work with. Is that okay? And it actually is, because do you know what? We want to have friends in business. And this is something that maybe is a little bit different. And bookkeepers, and we encourage this, we are having to leverage our time. We are doing this job. We're building this business around other things. So why don't we do it with people that we like? So something I did was, I'm only going to take on clients that are my Facebook friends. And I know that sounds strange, but the reason I did it, because I do something called attraction marketing. So I put everything, like loads of things on Facebook about me, and I want to repel people that don't like me. So they never ask me for a sales call. I don't want to, if they don't like me, I don't want to work with them. And I think this is kind of a new concept. The thing is, when we are building our businesses, I've got 3 kids. I'm running 2 businesses. I've got a lot of stuff on my plate. Do I really want to speak to someone and try and help somebody that doesn't like me as a person? Do you know what? There's going to be people everywhere. There's going to be people that don't like you, and that's okay. But you don't have to take money from them. You don't have to do their VAT return. You don't have to have the horrible email and get that horrible tummy feeling when the phone rings. You get to choose to work with people that you like and that like you. And then therefore they value you. And guess what? When they value you, you can charge a bit more as well because you're all singing from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah, and I think it's about productivity too. When we carry, Jo calls it the mother's load. You know, if you're thinking about what you're going to have for tea tonight and whether your children have gone to school with the flute in their bag and what school dinner you chose and whether they changed it to meatballs or bolognese, because I'm thinking about that right now. And you're also trying to remember all of those clients and all of those different businesses and how do I log into that thing that client uses and have I remembered to do that extra step that client needs? It's really difficult to stay on top of everything. But when you have an ideal client and you know that actually the businesses that I work with, first of all, they're nice to talk to when they call me, but also we work with this software and we work with this particular type of client business, maybe not an industry niche, but maybe an industry niche, and generally their businesses look like that. We can have processes that we can replicate over and over, and that helps us to scale. It helps us to have good, strong processes that help us to grow our teams. We can also we can also compare and contrast those clients, and we can be experts really in what they do, and we can help those clients to be even better at what they do because we have the insights from other businesses like theirs.
Absolutely.
And that leads to services. That leads to having one service that you go out with. And I know you always talk about your gold standard service that you would offer every client, whether they'd ask for that or not.
Yeah. But the thing is, when I started, I had massive imposter syndrome. And I think we find, and we know from talking to so many bookkeepers, that there are things that they don't feel comfortable in offering. And so they won't offer it. You know, some people will look at a job advert and think, I can do 20% of that, I'm going to go for it. And other people will look at it and think, I can do 80% of that, but I don't know that tiny 20%. That's a bookkeeper. A bookkeeper will go, no, I don't know that. I'm not going to sell that to them, or they would really undercharge themselves. So we have this imposter syndrome. So my gold service did have to evolve over time as I built confidence and things, but it did start off with just bookkeeping on its own with VAT, and then it grew to have management accounts and cash flow. And that was my gold service. And I offered it to everybody on day one, regardless of if they wanted it or not, because it was great for them to know what they could have in the future and they could upsell later on. But imposter syndrome does hold bookkeepers back. And we do find that accountants, because they know every other accountant offers these services, accountants will go out there and offer all the services. Well, bookkeepers will hold themselves back sometimes and go, I won't offer that service until I've got the exams. And what we say is just offer what you're comfortable with, because there's so much work out there. Don't feel you have to be everything to everyone. And we have so many people in our community that really focus on certain services and get really, really good at that and therefore become the expert.
Do you remember this guy, Dave Shannon? Dave became a bookkeeper after he still has his driving school, and that runs because he knows how to scale a business now. But he went into, started his bookkeeping business and really focused on having driving schools. Well, because he was the person who was always in the groups answering the questions of the driving instructors about, could I claim for my branded t-shirt, or can I claim for, my pants? People have often tried to put through. Whatever those questions are, Dave was the person answering the conversations in the Facebook group. He became the expert. And then he went out and he wrote a book about, are you ready? Are you ready for business, driving instructors? Here's the book for driving instructors about bookkeeping. He positioned himself very clearly as an expert.
But the thing is with Dave is that because he knew his industry and who he was talking to, most of them were sole traders, so he didn't need to offer payroll. So he learned payroll way down the line. It's only recently he's been learning payroll. He didn't need it. So I think that's the difference, and that's a benefit of bookkeepers, is that we can focus on certain areas. We don't have to be all things to all people, where sometimes accountants feel like they have to offer every service. And the thing is, when you're known as an expert, imagine Dave going out knowing his worth, knowing he really understands. He's run a driving school himself. Experts don't charge £25 an hour. No one would expect a solicitor or anyone to charge that. You've got this expertise. So I hope you're getting to the point now. No one charged £25 an hour. I think you have a stat in there.
The fourth part in the RISE framework is engagement. Engagement is where you have conversations. So all of those clients all of those ideal clients of Jo's that she was connecting with on Facebook, they were getting to know her because she was posting posts about her family or sharing her whatever she was doing on a Saturday evening in the kitchen on her Facebook post. And they were able to start a conversation, and the conversations start relationships. And when you have relationships with people, they trust you. And that is what these people are really good at. And that's why we spent the whole day yesterday talking about communication, because if you can communicate with your client, you can get inside their head. You can understand what their goals are. You understand what drives them. You know their business better. And we're not saying that accountants don't know their clients' businesses, but bookkeepers are really great at positioning themselves as that go-to person. You know, when your client is thinking, there's this opportunity for me to take up this new office space, or I'm thinking I need to get someone else in my team, or something's changing, or my mortgage costs more. How am I going to make some more money? My costs are going up. What can I change? They feel they can reach out to their bookkeeper because they don't only have a conversation with them at the end of the year.
Absolutely. I mean, when we were doing weekly bookkeeping, so we were aiming for daily bookkeeping, or they still are aiming for daily bookkeeping. And that means there's a lot of conversations and lots of communication, a lot of relationships that are being built, and the trust is being built. And we really do become that trusted partner in the relationship because there's just so much communication.
It's a different approach. So traditional accountant leads with compliance. They're thinking end of the year, everyone needs to file some kind of tax return. And to be able to do that, we're going to have to at some point get to the bookkeeping. We think that the way bookkeepers approach this is, let's get this daily bookkeeping or this weekly bookkeeping really, really good. Let's have conversations about this. And then we can provide this compliance piece, but we're also really well positioned over here to talk to them about their goals in business and start offering all of the advisory services you hear about when we're ready to do that too.
Here's the secret. So I didn't get to the 700,000 over the 3.5 years by doing just bookkeeping. I offered the full service. I outsourced and made money from compliance. I did it the other way round. And what we're letting you know today as accountants, you can do it the other way round too. And actually, we can all really work and benefit from each other's expertise. And being the experts in our areas actually benefits our clients so much more. We're able to add more value. We can make more profit, have happier teams, happier lives, achieve our goals. So we just wanted to switch it around, flip it on his head and show you that there is maybe another way.
It's all about communication. And if you can find the people that you can have the best conversations with, that's where you're going to really show the value of what you do. So bookkeeping is a service that you can offer standalone as a bookkeeping service, or something that you can incorporate into your accountancy practice. You just might need to think about it differently to get away from that hourly rate. If you want to understand more about the type of ideal client that you want to work with and what we think the benefits are, you're very welcome to do our free ideal client training, which you can get with this QR code. But the question we really want to leave you with is, how could adding bookkeeping benefit your practice and benefit your client? We'd love to take some questions. If you want to come up and have a chat with us afterwards, we're going to hang around. Thank you so much for being here.